Welcome to Decrypt, Asia's first blockchain and cryptocurrency podcast. I'm your host, Tushar. Each week, we take a deep dive into the Asian blockchain scene with investors, technologists, and industry insiders. Go to decrypt.asia to subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Telegram to join in the discussions. Welcome to the show, Tiago.
Tushar, thank you so much for having me.
Before we dig into what you're building, could you tell us a little bit about your background and your journey in the blockchain space?
Sure. My name is Tiago. I am from Portugal. I've been in the last 3 years in Singapore. The reason I moved here was to open our Southeast Asia operations for the Aptoide, which is the original company. And in terms of blockchain, last year we decided to develop this blockchain-based protocol, and we use the Singapore entity to run our ICO. And right now we are executing on the roadmap that we promised our investors.
The project that you're involved with is called AppCoins. Your plan, however, to leverage the existing business called Aptoide, or is it?
Yes, for sure. So to give you an idea, that the tagline for our ICO was the first ever ICO for 200 million active users. Why 200 million active users? Because that was our user base last year in 2017. So what I usually say in terms of the AppCoins project, we have something very valuable behind us, which is our user base. So just to give you an idea, last month we had 35 million monthly active users in Aptoide. On a yearly basis, that corresponds to 250 million users. And these are the users to whom we're going to push the first version of the AppCoins protocol.
Okay, so I'm going to get into how your traditional business is going to be affected with the creation of AppCoins. But could you tell us a little bit, you already touched on this a little bit, but could you tell some of our listeners who may not know about Aptoide? It's obviously an app store, but could you tell us a little bit more about what Aptoide is? What's your business?
Yes.
Do you compete with Google Play because you're an Android-focused app store, or like what exactly is Aptoide?
Yeah. Well, I don't like to use the word competitor because Google is just Google Play is so much bigger. But you're right. It's an alternative to Google Play. So let's see this scenario. A user goes to a smartphone shop. They buy an Android phone, can be a Samsung, Xiaomi, whatever. It usually comes with Google Play pre-installed on the smartphone. If for any reason the user cannot use Google Play or they don't want to use Google Play, and then I can explain some of the reasons, they can install an alternative app store in their Android device. So Aptoide is one of those. So just an alternative to Google Play.
And are there a lot of other app stores beyond Google Play and yourself?
Well, I think the most famous, at least in the Western world, is Samsung. Samsung has Galaxy apps. Many people don't know, but there's an app store from Samsung in the Samsung phones. Amazon also has an app store. Alibaba, Baidu has an app store. And then there's Aptoide. We, based on our numbers, we think we are one of the top 3 Android app stores outside from China, where Google Play will be number 1. There's not a clear number 2, but I would say Aptoide is somewhere between number 2 and number 3 in terms of users.
Amazing. I didn't know that actually.
Are you an Android user or an iPhone user?
Actually, so I was, for the longest time, I was a BlackBerry user. And since then I've only used iPhones.
Yeah, so if you have an iPhone, you don't have a choice, okay? You must use the app store that comes with your iPhone. For Android users, there's still a way for them to install another app store if they cannot or they don't want to use Google Play.
Yeah. So how did the idea of AppCoins come about? Could you tell us a little bit more about it? And
yes. For sure. So the idea came around August last year, 2017. So basically, the story of Aptoide is that we've been around since 2011. 2013, we got our seed round. Early 2016, we got our Series A round, and we use that money to expand to Asia, not only here, Singapore, Southeast Asia, but also Shenzhen in China. And then last year, we were at a point where we were ready to go for a Series B round. That's the traditional path of a startup. But our feeling was that if we just go for a Series B round and keep doing what we're doing, we don't stand a chance against Google Play. And let me explain why we think like that. Because when I was pitching for the Series A round in 2015, we had 10 million monthly active users. At that time, Google Play had 1 billion monthly active users. If you fast forward 2 years to 2017, we had 20 million monthly active users. And at that time, Google Play had 2 billion. So even though we're still 1% of Google Play, in terms of absolute numbers, the gap became so much bigger. And why I cannot catch with Google Play is because I'm not generating enough money with my App Store. And one of the things we're trying to address with our blockchain protocol is to solve this dilemma of how can I generate more money inside the App Store through in-app purchases. And if you want to understand this better, I can explain a little bit further if you think makes sense to Shah.
Absolutely. So, perhaps you could focus on all the problems that exist within app stores currently.
Okay. So let's start with the payment part. So the payment is working very well for Google. That means any developer that submits their game into Google Play, Google will take a 30% cut, 30% cut from all in-app purchases. For another app stores like us, this is a big problem because we're not monetizing in-app purchases. Why? Because when I go to speak with a developer, let's say Candy Crush, right? And I say, would you create a version of your game with my billing? They will say no. They will say no because they look at my size and they look at the size of Google Play, and we are so small compared to Google Play. So one of the things we're trying to address with AppCoins is that we're creating an open source protocol. Why open source? Because our goal is to get other app stores to join this effort for this open source protocol. And once we join forces, then it's not only my user base, right? It's the user base of the total number of app stores using this protocol. And then when I go to speak with Candy Crush again, it's not only 1% of Google Play, maybe it's 5% of 10% of Google Play size. And then at that time, they will create a version of their game with AppCoins payment. Is it clear to Shar?
Absolutely. So, I'm just trying to understand the process a little bit better. Will the development requirements to publish an app, it could be a game, it could be another app on your platform, is it different from Google Play's? I mean, will there be separate development required to create an application in your app store compared to, say, Google Play?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's still an Android game, okay? So in terms of the game, there's no development of new code. Where you have to change something is the part of the billing. The biggest challenge, and the reason why they have to create a different build for us, is that if they put the game in Google Play, with Google Play payment, but also supporting AppCoins, Google Play will kick this developer out. They don't allow any other type of payment inside Google Play. So there's no alternative to the developer but to change the APK. So APK is the format of the game, the file format for games and apps in Android. Sure. They'll have to submit one APK to Google Play with Google Play billing. And then for other app stores, like AppCoins, they'll have to create a different APK. And the part that they have to change is the billing component. And that's it.
And how does is it absolutely free to, you don't take any cut today from in-app purchases, or do you still have a billing process within Aptoide today?
So the plan with AppCoins is to cut the cost for the developer by half. So as I mentioned before, Google will take a 30% cut, 30.
Yeah.
For the AppCoins protocol, we're taking 15, so half of the cost from Google Play. And then this 15 will be shared between the App Store and the smartphone manufacturer. Why we are rewarding the smartphone manufacturer? It's because Google Play today gives 0 to the smartphone manufacturer. So that means if you download a game from Google Play on a Xiaomi phone or Samsung, and then you buy something, the 30% cut goes to Google Play. They don't share anything to the manufacturer. We think that's not fair. So from the 15, the 15% that the AppCoins protocol takes, we're going to share this with the manufacturer of the smartphone.
Sure. So my question was more about Aptoide, your current business. So how does billing work on Aptoide today?
So before AppCoins, the billing was similar to Google Play, accepting a credit card and MOL prepaid cards.
Okay.
So there was no big distinction from Google Play billing. And on top of that, with the traditional billing from Aptoide, the developer, if he wanted to work with us, he would still have to create one version for Aptoide, then one for Samsung, then one for Amazon, and so on. With AppCoins, we changed this completely, okay? Because it's an open source protocol, as long as the other app stores adopt this protocol, there's only one APK, and then it will be compatible with all the other app stores. So that's the main difference between how the billing with Aptoide work and how we're proposing with the new billing for AppCoins.
Okay, so in the future when AppCoins goes live, and I'm going to get into where you are in terms of your development, but in the future, I'm presuming on AppCoins, you will have your own cryptocurrency, which will be used to make payments, to make in-app purchases. Do you think Google is going to have, because you're still going to use Android phones, right? Do you think Google is still going to have some problems with this new currency that is being used on your App Store? Because it's still kind of their ultimate platform, right?
Well, I don't know if you saw the news about a month ago, but European Union just gave a $5 billion fine against Google because Google is trying to monopolize this Android market, which when they introduced it, they said it was open source. But in this case of what we're doing, there's nothing Google can do, okay? It's our own App Store, it's our own servers, it's our own blockchain-powered protocol. There's nothing Google can do. What they'll keep doing is they'll keep telling developers, if you're going to publish a game in Google Play, the only payment method that we accept is the Google Play billing. So they'll never accept AppCoins in their App Store.
I mean, I'm just curious, and I'm just thinking out loud since you said this. Do you think there's a possibility that, like tomorrow, Google, not explicitly, but implicitly, they kind of say that if you publish your application on Aptoide, you will not get into Google Play? I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know if this is a possibility.
So I would say, Tushar, if you asked me this question like 2 months ago, I'm not sure about that answer. Now, with what European Union just told Google, I think there's no way they can do that. Because if European Union is already saying that they are anti-competitive, right, the way Google is operating, they have to be careful. They cannot do that type of statements, right? They can set up the rules in Google Play and saying all the games that are published in Google Play, they have to follow these rules. But come out and say, hey, developer, you can only work with Google Play. You cannot work with any other app store. I think they'll never do that, especially now with this fine from European Union.
Okay, so we've been talking about in-app purchases for a while. There's a couple of other components that you're looking to address with AppCoins as well. So advertising inside the App Store is one of them, and application approvals is the other one. Could you talk a little bit more about these two aspects? What are the problems that are there currently, and how AppCoins solves the issues that exist within these two verticals?
Sure. So yeah, I agree with you with the payments. I think it's clear, right? Just reducing from 30 to 15, it's clearly an improvement because there's no middleman. For the advertising and the app approval, sometimes it's not so obvious to the common person, but let me explain. So the advertisement, the way advertisement works today for apps and games is a model called CPI, cost per install. This means you go inside Facebook or Instagram or so on, you see this advertisement for this game, you click on the game, you install it, and this channel, let's say Instagram or Facebook, they get paid by that installation. The biggest problem today, let me focus on two big problems with this model, One is the cost, right? So if you are the developer and you're trying to acquire users, you have to spend money with all these intermediaries in the CPI model, okay? From the channel, the store, the tracking link, servers, and so on. So all the cost stays in this middleman and there's no benefit to the user. And then the second thing is around transparency. So many times the developers will see a new user, and because there's so many middlemen, they have no idea where this user came from. So what we're trying to do, taking advantage of the blockchain and Ethereum network, is on one hand, pass the money that the developer is spending to the user, okay? And removing the middleman. How are we going to do that? So basically, we're going to have an offer wall, now of course, starting on Aptoide, where it says, get rewards with AppCoins, and then we'll have a list of games and apps which are trying to acquire users. And the users know, if I click on this game, I install it, and I spend 2 minutes of my time inside the game, I'll get rewarded with some AppCoins. So here's the big difference, okay? In the CPI model, all the intermediaries take the cost of the developer. In this case, there's no cost with the middleman, and it's all about rewarding the user. The second thing about transparency, it's a one-to-one relationship, okay? So the smart contract is between the developer and the user. So we'll register in the blockchain the information of which is the smartphone and which is the channel, the app store where this user is getting this game. So the developer can actually go to the public ledger and check this information. There's no more question of where this user came from because it's written on the blockchain. Third thing, you asked me about the security. So when you discuss the iOS versus Android ecosystem, one of the weaknesses of Android is about the security, okay? There's usually more virus and malware in the Android platform versus the iOS platform. Today, as Aptoide, as a business, we have a security platform that we've been developing in the last 7 years, and we do catch a lot of virus and malware of the submissions we get in our App Store. So to give you an idea, every time someone uploads a new APK into our platform, we use 6 antivirus tools to check for virus. Then we check for malware, and we finally compare the signature of the game against the one from Google Play to make sure it's the same developer. Only after these 3 steps, we allow this game to be published in our platform. The problem is that we're not sharing this information with anybody, okay? So let's say a developer tries to put a game with virus inside Aptoide and it's blocked. Then you can go to the Samsung App Store or Amazon App Store, try to do the same thing and see if they can get through. And we're not sharing this information with Samsung and Amazon. So what we're trying to create with the AppCoins protocol is to create like a kind of like a blacklist that the telecom companies do. I'm not sure if you know about this, Tushar, but if you have an account with a telco and you don't pay your bill and then they shut down your service, when you try to go to another telco provider in the same country, they have this blacklist that they share. And if they see your name there in this blacklist, they will not allow you to create a new account. We're trying to do the same thing with AppCoins. By using the public ledger on the blockchain, we're going to write the reputation of this developer, and then any other app store, when they see a new submission from a developer they didn't know, they can go and check the public ledger to see, is this a developer, a good developer, or bad developer?
I wasn't aware of that actually, but it's a very good analogy and it makes things very clear. So I'm just trying to understand how your current business is going to be affected with AppCoins coming. So is AppCoins going to be a separate app store, or you're going to use Aptoide as the app store and we're just using AppCoins as the payment gateway?
So is the second thing that you said. So Aptoide is like the first client of the AppCoins protocol. We already have another app store called Mobile Streams from UK, who is on board already, and we're trying to get other app stores on board. But of course, because Aptoide is the company behind the AppCoins concept, we are the ones throwing ourselves first into this project. So in the beginning, AppCoins will be launched inside the Aptoide, but we're hoping in the future that other app stores join us, just like Mobile Streams, and then we get more app stores using the protocol.
Okay, and so I see a lot of companies who had existing businesses try and migrate onto the blockchain and have their native cryptocurrency to incentivize the multiple stakeholders that exist in their ecosystem. How do your current investors, because you obviously had a seed round in 2013, had a Series A in 2016, how does it affect the VCs or the angel investors that invested in your business in the seed or Series A stage?
Well, in our case, it was really good because we raised this $17 million last December, and this gives us runway to support the AppCoins project for the next few years. So for the VCs, it's really good because we just got funds to support this new project from Aptoide, and the VCs, the equity part in the Aptoide company, did not change at all. So for them is a great scenario.
Okay, so now instead of the revenue that you were generating otherwise in USD, now you're going to the valuation of Aptoide as a company grows because of the revenue that you generate from the 15% that you will be charging for the in-app purchases.
Exactly. We'll still have some traditional ad business because we don't want to cut our revenues from one day to the other. But yeah, the focus now is on AppCoins.
Yeah. And so now the other aspect. So you mentioned that you will be generating some revenue from a traditional perspective. How do those benefits translate into the investors who invested during your ICO? How do the token holders benefit from the revenue that you generate from traditional means?
No, so it's completely distinct, okay? So the traditional revenue we have from advertisement, there's just cash that adds to the top of the cash that we also had from the ICO. So that's cash for the company, just to support our operations, salaries, and so on. The investors of our ICO, they'll benefit from the appreciation of the token. So if our project becomes successful, there will be demand for AppCoins to get this token because it's the only payment method that can be used inside our platform. So if this demand is there, hopefully the token will also appreciate.
Okay, and from what I understand from the white paper, you can't take this token outside of the ecosystem, right? You can't convert this, or can you?
It's a specific token. So remember I told you about the advertising piece where the user gets reward if he plays the game for 2 minutes. We don't want this token to be cashed out, okay? We want the user, after he earns this token from from playing the game for 2 minutes, we want him to use this token inside the games. We don't want him to cash out to exchanges. And the reason is we don't want to have people creating like these click farms to try and mine the token, you know, just pretend they're playing the game for 2 minutes. So it's just to protect us from fraud.
Okay, so I guess you would have 2 different kinds of tokens because, maybe...
Well, that was the first idea, Tushar, to have 2 types of tokens, but at this moment we feel it's a bit complex. Yeah. So we're trying to create barriers, right? So if you earn these tokens from playing the game for 2 minutes and you try to cash out, you're going to lose money from cashing it out. So we're just trying to put some obstacles such that the user will have an incentive to spend inside the game instead of cashing out.
Okay. So, but technically speaking, it is still possible to, at this point, obviously with a penalty, but to kind of cash out.
Yes, just because we look at the scenario of 2 tokens and we felt it was too complex.
Right. And do the service providers have an option of choosing between USD and your token while listing their application? Or do they have to go with AppCoins when they publish the app on Aptoide going forward?
So the transaction is only done using the AppCoins token, using the smart contract of AppCoins. What the provider has the possibility is on the back office, when they set the price in AppCoins, they can see the equivalent in USD. But for the user, we only show the price in AppCoins.
Okay. And where are you in terms with your developments currently? Is AppCoins already running? What can I do on your platform today?
Okay. So the first thing I want to tell you, do you remember the third part about the app approval and security? Yeah. We haven't worked on that part yet. We've been focusing on the payment and the advertising. So the payment is already in place. It's already the mainnet. The advertising is also already on the mainnet, but still some bugs, a little bit behind. But everything is almost ready, and we had to have it ready because in our roadmap to our investors, we promised that by September 2, we're going to push the AppCoins protocol to all Aptoide users. So that's where we are right now, finalizing the protocol. We're also introducing something very important for September 2 launch, which is the top-up with the credit card inside the AppCoins wallet. Because let's be reasonable, right? So the people that are going to install the games and spend AppCoins inside Aptoide are not the crypto investors, right? So I'm not going to ask someone to go to a Binance to buy AppCoins, then to make some type of in-app purchase inside the game. So for the September 2 launch, we're going to have a top-up with credit card inside our wallet. So the user doesn't even need to have a crypto account in an exchange or something.
Okay. So September 2 is actually a very auspicious day. Auspicious is the word I was looking for. It's my 26th birthday also.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's a very important date. Yeah. On the double. For us, on our side, it's just, it was the 9 months that we promised in our ICO, right? So we promised that by the third quarter of this year, we will have the protocol ready to push for Aptoide users. So we plan to accomplish it. And I'm very proud to say that until now, we haven't missed any of the milestones that we promised our investors.
Okay, that's amazing. There's a lot of projects that are facing several delays, which is in a lot of cases understandable as well, but that is very amazing that you've kind of kept up with your roadmap. The other point that I wanted to check was from a publisher's perspective or like an app developer's perspective, you said that they can see the revenue from a USD perspective, but the user only can use AppCoins. Is there any problem from the app developer's perspective because their revenue will keep fluctuating as your coins fluctuate?
Yes, it's something that might be a problem if it fluctuates too much. But the good thing is that, let's say the AppCoins value is not very high, so the developer doesn't want to cash out. The good thing is that he can just take those tokens and acquire more users through the advertising piece, right? Because we think that it's going to be much more efficient than traditional models to acquire users. So he'll say, okay, I have 1,000 AppCoins. Shall I cash out this to fiat, or shall I use these 1,000 AppCoins to acquire new users inside Aptoide? We think they'll choose the second if the price of the AppCoins is not at a good level.
Okay, so from 2nd of September onwards, as a user, if I have an Android phone and I'm using your App Store, I can still use a credit card?
No. Okay, let me clarify that. Yeah. We're putting all our effort into the AppCoins project. So the traditional billing that I mentioned, we completely shut it down. We're completely focusing on the AppCoins. So all the transactions have to be with AppCoins. What we're going to have for September 2 is a top-up method with the credit card. So, of course, you can buy AppCoins from Binance if you want, and then use those to make in-app purchase. Or inside our wallet, you just put your credit card information, you buy some AppCoins, and then you can use those AppCoins for the in-game items.
Yeah, but you can't use USD anymore, right? Like to make the purchases, you have to use AppCoins.
No, only AppCoins, because that's how you can take advantage of the smart contract, right?
All right.
Which is built into 85-15 split.
Yeah. So beyond the September 2 release, is there any other item that is on your agenda over the next 3 to 6 months?
Yes, there is. I'm glad you asked that. And very important item. So November 5th is going to be an important date for us. Why? Because we're going to do the AppStore Foundation launch event in Lisbon, Portugal. Why Lisbon, Portugal? Because we are a Portuguese company, and it's also the week of the Web Summit, which is like a huge, maybe the biggest tech event in the world. Why the AppStore Foundation? So do you remember how in the beginning of our conversation I told you that this is open source, it's much more than just Aptoide, right? If we don't get the other app stores, the smaller app stores, working together with us to try and fight Google Play, it's very difficult to break the Google Play monopoly. So we already have all the code in GitHub, and we've announced that this is open source, but we feel, and we wrote that in the white paper, we need to have this entity, this independent entity, that will be in charge of promoting and governing the protocol. So we're incorporating the AppStore Foundation, and we're planning to do it here in Singapore. And then November 5th is the launch event of this foundation. And then, of course, the first two app stores that are members of the foundation is Aptoide and Mobile Streams that I mentioned from UK. But we're hoping that other app stores also join as members of the foundation. And then to make sure that it's completely independent, the voting will be done by the token holders of AppCoins. So that means let's fast forward 1 year, and let's say Aptoide has 15% of the tokens, and then the other app stores and other investors have the other share of the tokens. And there's a decision on the table, and Aptoide votes to go left, but the other majority votes to go right. The App Store Foundation will follow whatever the majority votes. So this is how we're trying to make it a really independent protocol to show that it's not about Aptoide. Aptoide it's just a member of the foundation. Is it clear?
Yeah, so you will kind of have an on-chain governance depending on the amount of stake that you have in the ecosystem.
Exactly.
Right. But do you think there's a possibility that, like there are 2 or 3 players who will have majority of the stake in terms of the tokens, in terms of the AppCoins that are there in the whole ecosystem?
Well, to give you an idea, in terms of the token split, so there's a fixed supply of 250 million. 40% were sold in the ICO, so they're not in our hands. And then for the remaining 60%, only 15% belongs to Aptoide. The rest were 10% for advisors, 15% will be to support the operations of the App Store Foundation, and then 20% is for bootstrap initiatives, for incentives to bootstrap the protocol, and these 20% are also under the management of the App Store Foundation. So right now, of course, these 60% are still in our wallet because it hasn't been unlocked and distributed, but yeah, we'll be a minority stakeholder.
Okay. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to mention that we may not have talked about?
Well, I would just like to go back to your comment about how we've been doing well versus other projects. We have a big community on Telegram, more than 10,000 members. Of course, the crypto market is down now. Everybody is suffering. But one of the things that I would like to tell anybody that is listening to us is that it's like you said, I think we are delivering in our promise. There's so many projects out there, like you said, that after more than 1 year after their ICO and after raising big sums of money, much more than we did, they have nothing to show. I'm really proud that we already have our protocol in the mainnet. Today, you can already download the Aptoide developer version and test the payments. So I think we're doing pretty well in terms of the development and the promise that we gave to our investors. But yeah, we're suffering. We decided not to do any market making. There's a lot of ICO projects that hire these firms to do market making in Binance, Wabi, and HitBTC. We have decided not to do it because we think that's artificial. So I just ask our investors to be patient. We've been delivering everything that we promised. And we have a strong user base, right? 35 million monthly active users that are not going anywhere. We work with more than 50 smartphone manufacturers out there. We have a relationship with 12,000 Android developers. So we are here to stay, okay? These partnerships and these users are not going anywhere. It might take some time for AppCoins to become a popular payment method and user acquisition method, but we won't give up until we accomplish what we want to.
That's great to hear. So what's the best platform to follow AppCoins developments?
Well, it's Telegram. So if you go to Telegram and search for AppCoins Official, we have a channel where you can follow all the important news. We are on Twitter, Facebook. Yeah, so those are the top channels.
All right, great. I think on that note, let's end this interview. Thanks, Tiago, for coming on the show on this Friday evening.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tushar, for the opportunity.
Great to have you on the show.
Have a great weekend.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Telegram, and subscribe to our newsletter on decrypt.asia. This is your host, Tushar. Thank you for listening.